Hi, and welcome to the Scientist Sage Sangha. And I am Nancy Anderson Dolan, and this is Wise Heart Wellness. And tonight that we are going to talk about a very interesting topic of softening. And softening is almost, people cringe away from it. To be soft in our society is sort of like cringeworthy these days. And so we want to get into this and show that maybe not, maybe it's useful in some fashion. And so the idea, softening is like defined as making something different by some process. Okay. It's not just you're being soft. Things like, cold to warm softens many things, or soaking something like dried beans, or worn down from use is, like your comfy chair, or people talk about, a feather bed at their grandmother's, or, something that's softened into a real comfortableness. Or even like the food that we have that's dried and we cook it in water and it's softened so we can eat it. So it's a useful practice, this idea of softening. And there is an idea of language in it where, we talk about, as we're going through life, that we get tougher and we harden up and that's the way to get through life. But truly it's not. And actually what it causes is a lot more unwellness generally. And so, like the tree that, bends and doesn't break in the wind, a hard tree breaks and a soft tree bends. But also that we talk about it for us as people. We can let life harden us, or we can let life soften us up. So it depends on what we choose, because we have a different kind of capacity than, trees. And so the idea of that is really important to sort of grasp here. Like the idea of armor, Brene Brown talks a lot about putting on armor and how it's very useful to become softer and become more vulnerable. And so the idea that we can consciously choose to open up and feel deeply, and not in a codependent way, because I've done it that way, it doesn't work well. When you're making excuses for someone, when you are making excuses so you can do something you don't feel quite right about doing, but it would get you out of some pain, for at least for the short term. And so it's not that kind of softening. It's softening that gets you into clarity about what's going on and the consciousness of what effect things have had on us and what effect we might have on other people. Just softening into the actual circumstances of our lives. And even into our own selves, softening into our shadow, or softening into our sorrow, or those kinds of things. But I want to talk a little bit first about what softening is not, okay? Because it has such a bad reputation, we got to sort of free it up a little bit. I really should be a salesperson, because I do try and sell these other ideas that help people feel a little different. But softening is not doing anything about something, okay? Acceptance is not about that. It really is about feeling more deeply into situations and coming to them from a different orientation. That's really what it is. And so it's not denial about things, that things are going on. Like some people will take it as maybe a spiritual shortcut, is slang that people use, that it's like, nope, must be happening for a reason, without feeling into it more deeply. And we will get to my weekend a little more about that in a minute. Good example. And one of the things that I got involved in the last year was something called Defend Our Forests. And this was not a war rally. It was a peace meeting, and people went around and said it's so important to us that our forests in Alberta stay free to us and they're not taken over by private enterprise and things like that. And at one point I had my dog dressed up with a little card around her chest saying "Defend our forests," and I love to go out for a walk. And so it was really about softening people's idea about what our forests meant to them. And we won that battle. that idea to privatize our forests was dropped. And so it wasn't with a bunch of, nastiness or hardness. It was with real softness. And so there's lots of ways to do it without discounting or denial. And you don't want to excuse it's not excusing things either. Okay. Softness is sort of moving beyond controlling and manipulation and, blaming and shaming and that. And in the article from the Tiny Buddha, there was an idea of courageously softening into life, letting it be beyond pain and resistance. And I love that idea. And that there was the man that wrote the story in there, talked about bravely relaxing in life and see what happens. You will make decisions with more wisdom and take actions with more power. And that's what he had found from going from being a hard-ass businessman to a Buddha businessman, a very different feel in the world. And so what I understood early on was that pain and resistance to that pain produced a lot of suffering. I didn't know it was an ancient Buddhist tenet then. I just knew that's how it worked for me because I was practicing life that way. But the idea, it really is transformational to learn to soften. And Tara Brach calls it radical acceptance. And she's written a whole book on that. If you're having trouble accepting things in your life, it's a great textbook. And soften means to say, whatever this is, it belongs right now. And that is a hard bridge to cross. But I'll share some recent experience that will help you with that too. But surrendering into this deeper tenderness to yourself, to other people, and that just allowing it to be, just allowing it to be. And to do that, it takes a little bit, letting go of the resistance and judgment and stuff and just saying yes to life as it happens. The world, I believe, softens us to guide us. Because when we keep banging our head against a wall, then we're not moving forward. There was a quote in the email as well from Anais Nin, and she talked about palliating the sufferings of others. And so she wasn't saving them from their suffering, but just helping it be gentler for them. I was, when I was in the hospital this weekend, I was with a woman that had to have her hip replaced, and she had some dementia that had been added to by the drugs she was needing to take. And at first, when she was carrying on and stuff next to me, I hardened up and I felt that resistance to it. And then I got into the idea of softening, and because I was doing a little work for this and while I was there, and it was amazing as I softened up. And we ended up having a lovely roommate alliance, and I got her my soft red socks that I send to a lot of people, and she was very happy. And as she came out of the distress, she softened up too. And as she was cold and she was calling, but apparently she'd been calling a long time for a lot of things. So I pressed my buzzer and I said, "Can I get a warm blanket, please?" And I got her a warm blanket. And so this doctor came in and said, and she said to him, "This woman gave me a really big hug." And of course I hadn't, because I can't walk anywhere and get in there, but she had gotten this warm blanket. And so that softened both of us, all of us softened into it. So this idea of softening, I talk about body softening, and I talk about brain softening, and I talk about being softening and your mind softening. So body softening is pretty obvious. We literally relax our bodies. And whatever we need to do that, to soften into our bodies, if they're feeling upset, if they're, we might get them a cup of warm tea, or we might get a hot blanket, whatever it takes to soften, doing relaxation exercises. If we're softening our brains, often we're backing off of rigid thoughts. And backing off of rigid thoughts aren't easy because they usually are picked up in fearful ways. It needs to be this way. It has to be this way. And it's sometimes just just softening to maybe, maybe not, just a little bit. And softening the armoring, like I have to armor up, or I have to judge people. And I was actually got into judging the nurses for not treating my roommate better. And then I softened up a bit. And then I interestingly noticed how soft they were with my roommate that had some difficulties and not knowing what was going on and feeling panicky and that. But I suddenly saw how they always talked to her so kindly as well. And they needed to do things like remove staples, and they were so lovely and kind. And so it was really interesting how my perception also changed as I softened up and wasn't judgmental. And that happens a lot of the time. And the other idea of softening is notice in your mind where you harden, where your mind snaps into a hardening place, because it's really useful. And it may be a trigger from a different period in time. You might be able to see with your mind that your body is hardened in some way, or that you don't feel good. And that is causing your mind to snap into a harder place. So going around that whole circle about the being and the body and the brain is useful. But what is essential to it is to slow down a little bit. Slow your thoughts down, slow your body down, slow your business down, just slow your mind. And as you do that, that naturally softens things as well. And because a lot of these pieces did not go into the email, I'm going to write this up and just attach it as a document to the email that goes out with the follow-up part. Anyway, what I'm going to invite people that are on and people that are listening into doing is to just figure out somewhere maybe where they want things to be less hard. I really want my home to be a soft place to land. And I'm making some headway with that. But again, it's decluttering. And like we talked about, decluttering our emotions, our mind, our homes, that decluttering the ideas that we want to get rid of. Because I'm a hockey family, I'll give a hockey example here. The Flames coach from the Calgary Flames hockey team got decluttered this year. They sent him away because he had a lot of old school, really hard-edged ideas that had been really hard on the players. And they ended up not performing well, although they were a very talented group. And so literally decluttering that idea of, going down all the old hard, you're hard on them and that'll make people do things. That's one that we can consider for ourselves, not being hard on ourselves to try and make ourselves do things. So that idea, but I want to talk just a couple minutes more about Tara Brach's description of things. She talks about the boundaries to our acceptance are the boundaries to our freedom. So if we can't soften into something, we lose our freedom. We have less freer lives, and that really it is quite an incredible transformation that happens. And that's why she calls it radical acceptance. And this idea that this belongs right now when she's talking about things, and it allows it to just be. It doesn't harden us into a different person. And as we accept it, we generally move through it faster. And so I'll share my little experiment in softness, the lesson I got this week. I fell down some stairs and broke my leg. And this is my second broken leg. The other one is fully recovered, which was tremendously lucky that I have one good leg at a time at least. But I fell down some stairs and I sort of picked up my leg and I looked at it and it was all crooked, and I started screaming and I was yelling no, and no acceptance at all. And I actually went into shock and that sort of thing. But I just couldn't accept it. Even in the hospital, I woke up and I was sure it had been a dream. And my foot didn't get surgery until last night. So the 2 days before that, I would look at it and it was still all crooked. And I was very upset about that. And as I was confined by the universe to one small space in the hospital, I softened into things. And I actually had a really lovely time in the hospital. And the bizarreness of things, like my dog also has a broken leg, and my nurse yesterday, her dog had a broken leg. And I was able to give her some comfort and suggest something that might help her dog, because I found it to help my dog. And I just relaxed, softened into, I don't know what the universe is doing, but I can be with it. And as I was with it, the speed of my healing in my body was crazy. It was amazing. And yeah, it just was amazing, with the help of a number of people that I was willing to reach out to, and not feel embarrassed by the fact that I'd broken my second leg within 2 months, and that sort of thing. And as I softened into that, there was all this help coming too. And so it was an amazing experience. And just today, as I was completing the last leg of my hospital experience. Okay, that I did not write that joke. It just came up right now. It says, I was completing the last leg of my hospital experience. I was listening to a meditation by David G. And I'm going to invite you to listen it's inspired by him. I've altered it a bit. So get comfortable. And as always, take a deep breath. And sorry for the movement on the video, but that's because I'm propped up in bed with my leg again. And we're going to use a mantra that David G uses. And it is Ananda Maya Moksha. And I'll repeat that. And again, I will attach this in the email, so you don't need to write it down unless you really want to right now. And it's just a very gentle healing mantra, okay? So as you breathe in, we'll say the first word, Ananda. And then on the second word, Maya, breathe out. And third word, Moksha, breathe in. And Ananda is bliss. So you're going to breathe in bliss, deep bliss. And then Maya is illusion, the fear, the false evidence appearing real. And you breathe it out. And then you breathe in moksha, which is liberation. So I'm going to say that a few times. So breathe in, Ananda. Out, Maya. In, moksha, liberation. Ananda, Maya, moksha. Ananda, Maya, moksha. Ananda, Maya, moksha. You can keep breathing in and out, imagining those words. The gentle healing mantra that weaves into us that bliss and happiness, a softness, and washes out of us with Maya all that clinging pain that we have maybe even been afraid to let go of, or maybe we didn't even know we picked up. And moksha, the real release, not intellectual, but energetic, spiritual. Feel the freedom of empty everything that is getting in the way, that we've gathered up and is stuck in there. Breathe in Ananda, Maya, out, Moksha, in. And just let it weave all the way through your being, cleaning and clearing, softening and releasing. And the people that are with me are free to continue doing that. And I will say goodbye to those people that will end the video here. And thank you so much for listening afterwards. I am with you, you are with me. Blessed be.